and welcome to the MimeCast. Today we're very fortunate to have Rotimi Agbabiaka, Mime Troupe member, actor, writer, director, guy who does everything.
Yes.
So,
Nice
how you doing, Rotimi?
I'm doing okay. Hanging in there, trying to
Yeah, no, as
uh,
well as anybody can do it this
see the
time.
current reality, but not too bad. Can't complain too much.
Yeah. Yeah, so since this is about you, let's start at the beginning. Where were you born?
Where was I born? I was born in a hospital.
Hmm.
Um,
Near your
in
mother, because you loved her.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was born. Oh well, I don't know. I don't remember. Who knows? But no, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria.
Mhm.
Um,
So you're
yeah.
born in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, I'm guessing a lot of people haven't been there. So what's it? Well, first of all, tell me about your parents.
Sure. My
At that
parents,
at that point, what were they up to, and how did they
they,
meet?
how did they meet? There's this thing that happens in Nigeria after you're done with college or with higher education, where you go to this thing called the youth corps, it's like a youth service. You spend a year living in some part of the country that you're not from, and you work on like sort of public projects, and so
Everybody does that?
everyone who goes to attends college, yeah, it's a sort of prerequisite for working for
Is it part of like how you work off the cost for the college? Like your commitment to
um,
college is a social commitment also?
yeah, it's not really tied to cost. It's more just like a thing. It's like a requirement. It's sort of like how you have to like join the selective service, or like
Mm,
men had to do it. I don't know what it's like these days. In
yeah.
order to be eligible for, I guess, certain um, rights or certain programs. And I haven't gone through it myself but my understanding of it is that it's just a prerequisite for joining the workforce. You kind of have to prove that you've done it to have a lot of jobs in Nigeria. And so my parents met while they were doing their youth corps year. They both were from different parts of the country, and they ended up doing youth corps in the same city. And that's how they met. They met there. And
Wow.
so, yeah,
What were they doing in the youth corps? Did they have a specific thing or?
yeah, it's like a mixture of like there's some like military kind of stuff. They like do drills and stuff and work out. Work out. I think what's called working out. They like,
Yeah.
do drills. And
Mhm.
then they also do like community projects. I'm actually don't know exactly what they were doing specifically, but it's things like I think it's stuff like clearing, like, like keeping certain areas beautiful, clearing like forest areas, like sort of like there's some physical
Yeah.
component. I think there are different sorts of responsibilities, and you get assigned to something. I think things are what you're assigned to is based on probably your aptitude or things that you've
Mhm.
studied. So you get to do there are a variety of things, variety of services that you can do, but it's sort of community service, sort of like similar to like AmeriCorps or Teach for America, like
Mm.
something along those lines,
Mhm.
sort of for an American um, counterpart. But
Yeah.
so they were doing that, and they met, and they fell in love, and got married. Well, they had me, then got married. Probably shouldn't say
Hey, they
that.
know.
But they're listening. Well, they didn't. Well, they conceived me, and then they
Yeah.
got married. I was born in July. They were married in April. So, but they're still together. How many years ago? How many years now? Since so that seems to have worked out for everyone involved.
And so when you were born, what were they doing? Did
When
they
I
have
was
like?
born, I think they were done, and they were yeah, because they were in Lagos. Their youth service was in Jos, which is a city in the northern part of the country, or in Lagos, which is on the southern coast. And my father is a lawyer, so I think he was working as a lawyer. My mother was a microbiologist at the time, so I think she was working on research, and she used to work for the National Health.
No,
Um,
you guys
so
had national health.
yeah,
Close,
sort of.
but
I mean,
close.
something,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that, like a National Center for Research or something. Yeah, but
Hmm.
there isn't exactly a universal health program in Nigeria yet, and there wasn't at the time either. But well, national health.
So they,
Um,
they were there, what I was going to get back to is a lot of people probably have never been to Nigeria. So, but some of the people I've talked to, there's one woman who said she was from Kenya, I believe, and and the question was, well, what's it like there? And she said, it's kind of like here. And she said, there's cultural differences, but she's like, it's not that different.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are definitely lots of similarities. And lots of differences. I mean, yeah, it depends on where you are in the country too. I mean, the Lagos is where I'm from, is a big city, a big metropolis, and so there are many parts of Lagos that are, comparable or similar to other big cities, like New York or some parts of San Francisco. And then there are parts of the country that are very rural and parts of the country that are still pretty wild in terms of the landscape and the geography. It's a huge country, so it's very diverse geographically. There's a coast, and then you go further north and there's a rainforest, and then there's sort of a prairie savanna sort of, and then there's the desert at the very northern tip of the country. So it's really, it's very varied. There are over 250 dialects spoken, and about the same number of ethnic groups sort of bunched together by the British. And so so there's a layout. So it's a very, very diverse and varied place.
Just like every place else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It says, sometimes people have these weird ideas about other countries, and it's like, no, they're pretty much, there are similarities and there are dissimilarities. So when you were growing up there, do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
So were you born close to each other? Did you have to be the big brother?
We were, yes, I was. Yeah, we were super close, so they didn't, listen to anything I said. My younger sister is 2 years younger than I am, and my younger brother is 3 years younger. So we're pretty close, and I'm pretty thick as thieves when we were younger. I think I tried to exert some control, and they tell me now that I was very domineering, but my experience of our relationship was that they were very disrespectful. So
yeah, said like an oldest child.
Exactly, yes. They were not sufficiently, reverential.
If they would just done what you had told them to do, it would have been fun.
Exactly, we would all have had a great time.
They would have been happier.
Yeah. Exactly.
So now, when you were a kid, what were you interested in? What was your thing? Or did you have one? Like, some kids do lots of stuff.
Yeah, I was a big bookworm, so that was definitely, I think, one of my biggest things. I always had my nose in a book, and I had to be reprimanded. You can't read when you go to people's houses. That's rude. So I read a lot. I think that was sort of the biggest thing. I mean, I loved books. I loved reading. And that's something, I still love. I think that's fed a lot of what I've become or continued to be. And I also loved, my siblings and I would also put on these little plays.
Oh, really?
They were little. We were like obsessed with. Nigeria weddings are this huge, or they're huge everywhere, I guess. But in Nigeria, at least in our experience of Nigeria, it was like every weekend someone was getting married, and there was a lot of pageantry, and so we would always. Often our plays would revolve around a wedding of some sort, so we would sort of switch out who played the roles. But that was usually a wedding. Usually our mother's clothes were involved.
Did she know her clothes were going to be involved?
I don't know if she did. No, she was usually not at home. And so we would put on little plays. That was another thing I was really into. But I think reading and performing at home. I wasn't at that age. I wasn't part of any sort of like performance groups. I was outside of the house, but that was. We did some things in church, like
pageants and stuff.
Yeah. So but books were really my main thing as a kid. Yeah.
It's interesting because when I was a kid, when I was a young teen, at one point my parents said that they were actually going to send me to a psychologist or a psychiatrist if I didn't stop reading so much.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh.
Because I was reading all the time. I was walking down the street.
Yeah, totally.
You're reading too much. And I was
it's funny how that, I don't think that's possible. Yes.
So when you did these, when you were doing the pageants and wedding reenactments, were you writing them? Were you director? Are you organizing? Or were you one of the kids doing it, or what?
I think all of the above. Yeah. I mean, I think I don't think we ever had like scripts that were written down. I think we just sort of like had scenarios that we enacted. And there's sort of, with the wedding, there's sort of already a built-in script. There's like, there's a series of events that happen.
Yeah,
So we sort of like improvised around them. And so yeah, and I definitely functioned as a director and a performer in these. And I mean I definitely feel like I was probably the more enthusiastic participant. I think I kind of have images of my younger brother not really wanting to do it. I think I once tried to make him the bride, and he was not a good bride, and so I had to take over the role from him.
Motivation, come on.
Yeah, and so yeah, but I think I definitely wore multiple hats. It was a big driver of it, and I think once we got to a certain age, there were no more reenactments because no one else was really that interested in doing them. So yeah, I had to find another outlet. Which is probably why I ended up doing theater outside the house.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah.
The lighting is better. Did you? So when you were so you're as a kid, and when you get to be like I guess a young teen or whatever, did you start gravitating towards other performance, like you were saying, or was there a gap in there?
I gravitated towards other performance. I wasn't in my school in Nigeria. There wasn't. Now I don't think if this is true or not, but there wasn't a regular theater practice, but there were like we would do like little Christmas pageants and stuff, and I performed in some of those. But actually, the way that I started doing theater in a more sort of committed way or external, outside of the house kind of way was really random, actually. It was shortly after I moved to the U.S. I moved to Katy, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston, and I was going to school in Katy High School, and I was in the French club, and we had a meeting after school, and my mom was supposed to pick me up after the meeting, and she was late. And on my way out to the front of the school to get picked up, I walked past the cafeteria, and there was an audition going on. The theater department was doing a play called As Bees and Honey Drown. It was by Douglas Carter Bean. And if you know that play. Yeah. And it was a big departure from the theater department at Katy High School. They usually did, Kaufman and Hart plays, and Tennessee Williams, our theater director, Miss Smith, loved Tennessee Williams, but it was usually things that were a little bit earlier in time, and usually not with roles for kid from Nigeria with an accent, and so but this audition was going on, and I was like, oh, this, and I felt drawn to it. And my mom wasn't there, and then I was like, oh, I don't know about this audition. I want to do it, but I don't know if I can or if I should. And so I sort of made a pact with myself. I'd go to the library, I'd do some homework or something, and if I came back out and my mom still wasn't there, I'd audition. And so I went to the library, did some work, came back out. She still wasn't there, and so I walked in and I was like, hey, are you still accepting people to audition? And they were like, yeah, totally, come on. And so I went in, and I don't remember what I read. I think I probably read something from the play. And I got cast in a tiny role as the hotel clerk. And yeah, I think, I don't know, somehow the play was, it's set in New York. It's about these characters and sort of entertainment and showbiz, and it's supposed to be very cosmopolitan. I think my accent and added some extra worldliness to the production or something. I don't know, but anyways, they cast me, and from then on, I did every play that our theater department did until I graduated. So yeah, so it was really, so I think my mom, if she hadn't been late,
to
pick me up, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I might not be here.
Well, I want to go back to, so how old were you when you moved here?
I was 14.
So why did your parents decide to, and because your whole family moved to the U.S., right?
Yeah, essentially, my father still, worked, and I lived mostly in Nigeria, but yeah, but my siblings, my mother and I moved here.
So why did they decide to move here?
Because my parents wanted my siblings and I to go to school here. That was really primary.
Really?
Yeah, they wanted us to yeah, to go to school here, to go to college here,
Oh, that
specifically.
makes sense.
And so they thought it would
So
be
get
helpful
here
if we
before
could.
college and then get
Yeah,
ready. That's a
yeah.
good move.
So
Um, but what was that like? I mean, that was it before you left? You know, how much warning did you get?
not very much. It was
Really?
like I think maybe I got like a few weeks. Yeah, yeah,
Really?
it was very, yeah, it was very, yeah. My parents, yeah, we didn't really know, and then they're like, hey, in a few weeks we're moving. I was like,
Had
what?
you moved much inside of Nigeria, or had you just stayed in Lagos?
No, we stayed in Lagos. Yeah, we lived there our whole lives.
So
I
this
mean,
was a big
yeah,
thing.
it was a very big thing. I mean, we'd moved houses within the city, but we hadn't
Yeah,
like moved to any other cities or any other
yeah.
towns. Um, like, it was huge, and yeah, it was sort of, it was kind of at that point in my academic career or my school career where I was like, I'm finally have friends. I'm finally somebody. How dare you?
Yeah,
Nothing can
right.
pull me away from this. I've made it. I'm on top. I mean, that wasn't really, but in my
Yeah.
mind.
But you worked your way up in school, and it's like
I
finally you
had,
get
yeah,
get prestige. People know who you are. You got
yeah, yeah,
friends.
and
No.
then it's, oh God, yeah, because you start school earlier there, and so I was actually much further along.
Hmm.
I would have been in the States, and I was almost I was like in my second to last year in like
Wow.
senior high school there.
Oh. So
And I,
you're
yeah,
essentially a junior looking forward to being
yeah,
a
I was about,
senior finally,
yeah, and I was like,
and
yeah, and I
go
feel like,
back.
yeah, exactly. I had to go back, and yeah, there's just all, yeah. So it was really sad for me. Oh, at first,
Yeah.
um, but also exciting. It was exciting to be moving, to the
Hmm.
States, and and ultimately, I mean, yeah, it was. Transition, and so those are always difficult, and there was lots of difficulty, or some difficulty, but it was also, yeah, there were all kinds of, new experiences that I got to have, and new directions, I think, for my life. You know,
Hmm.
theater being one of the
Yeah.
big ones. So yeah, it was,
So why Texas?
We had a lot of friends, family friends there. There's a um, pretty sizable Nigerian community in the Houston area, specifically,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
um, for various reasons.
Hmm.
And so that was why,
Oh, okay.
we had a,
Yeah,
a
I
community
always
there.
wondered that. It was like when people do, when people move here, where they make the choice to land,
Mhm.
like there being a big Vietnamese and Hmong community in Wisconsin and in Minnesota,
Mhm.
because the government said that's where you got to go. Um, but different things are like having the largest, I think it's still the largest Philippine community outside of the Philippines is in Daly City.
Yeah,
You know, so how that happens is always
yeah, it's
interesting.
interesting how that happens. Yeah, I think I mean, there's a big oil connection between Nigeria and Houston, which is
Right.
part of that reason. And then for some reason, and I don't know if it's necessarily oil specific, um, I think there are lots of universities in the Houston area, or Texas, that for some reason were sort of destinations, or places that a lot of Nigerian immigrants or Nigerian students
Hmm.
went to, sort of in the 70s and the 80s, and there's still a lot of people who stayed. Um, so those are some of the reasons why, and I'm sure there are others that I don't even know of, for why, yeah, Houston is like this one of these hubs. I mean, Nigerians get it everywhere, so I mean, there's a big Nigerian community
Yeah.
in most major cities and
Yeah.
metropolitan areas in the world, I think.
Yeah.
But Houston is definitely a center.
Yeah,
Um,
it's probably the oil thing. When I was there recently, and I was asking some of the people that lived in Houston how they felt, being kind of like this blue dot in this big red, area. And they said, well, the people in Houston are more international because of the oil industry. They move all over the world, and then they come back. And if you work in one of those corporations, you have to move to another country. That's the way you work your way up. And so
yeah.
you're much more likely to make connections, and other people would say, hey, well, then maybe I'll move back there if they're working for that company.
hmm
Interesting. So
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in high school. You have the part of the desk clerk in that play.
Yeah.
So what was that? So what was the next show? Did you start working your way up, or did they just go, we got to cast this guy in big parts right away, or what? Oh, and did you take drama in high school?
I never did actually. So yeah, so the theater department was linked to theater. I mean, there were drama classes, and most of the students who did theater took those classes. But I had all these like other classes I had to make up because I didn't study like Texas history when I lived in Nigeria, and so I had all these prerequisites that I had to do in my time in high school. So I didn't. Yes, I never actually took a class. I just did theater after school because you could still have that option.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I'm trying to think of what the next play after that was. It was the UIL one act play. And it was a production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And for that one, I didn't act in the play. I was one of the alternates, which is sort of like understudies, but we didn't actually go on. We're just part of the crew, I guess. In Texas, they have this thing, the University Interscholastic League, and it sort of governs a variety of competitions in various subject areas. One of which is theater, and so you have this thing where the entire state or high schools all over the state in various divisions based on the size of the school are competing. And so we would have these so it's this theater thing where you do a play or you do 40 minutes, a 40-minute excerpt of a play. And there are all these rules about how much set you can have and how much time you need to set up and strike. And there are various divisions. You go from like district to area to region to semifinals to finals. The finals are in the state, and we actually made it to the state finals that year with our production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. So that was the next thing I did, and then I did musicals. I played Mr. Tumnus in Narnia the musical next. Wow. I think.
Now, had you been singing before this? I mean,
Not. I like sung a little bit in church, but I actually wasn't really I wasn't a singer. I didn't think my sister was the singer of the family. And but I guess I could carry a tune, and so I began to do musicals. Yeah, in high school we did Narnia the musical, and then Grease.
Who are you in Grease?
I played the teen angel, beauty school dropout.
Oh,
guy.
Really? Oh, wow. That's a big number. So,
yeah, it is.
What was that like? I mean, if you're going from, my sister's a singer and I can carry a tune to having to sing the Teen Angel song. It
was, I think it was fine. I mean, I don't know. I thankfully there isn't any recording of it as far as I can tell, as far as I know. So God knows. But I think that there is a way. There's a fearlessness or less fear when you're younger. And so I definitely think I, in some ways, have become more free, more fearless as I've, grown older or learned more. But there's also a way that the more you know that you don't know. So I think there's a bliss that comes from the ignorance of youth. So I definitely I don't remember being particularly stressed out about it. And I remember it being a lot of fun. And so it was fun. I got to wear a fun suit and, be flirty and funny and and sing this song and be in this sort of doo-wop world. And it was I remember it being a really great experience. Yeah.
Did your mother or both your parents have a chance to see you in shows?
Yeah, they came and saw the shows. My dad would fall asleep usually, but
that's what dads do.
But they came, yeah. And so my shows in high school, and it was sweet. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's nice. So then when you're finishing up high school, what were you thinking? Were you like, I want to go ahead with theater, or were you going to go for general education in college, or what?
Yeah, no, I was gonna go. I entered college as a journalism major, and I was going to go to law school. Mm-hmm. Theater as a profession was not something I considered. It wasn't within the realm of possibility for a Nigerian immigrant. Or son of immigrants. So I think, there are like 3 jobs you can have. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Anything else does not even count. So really? Be a lawyer.
Now, were you interested in it, or was it just because your father was a lawyer and he was pushing it? I mean,
I was in this really abstract way. I mean, it seemed like, I mean, I knew I wasn't really a scientist. I wasn't really into science or math specifically. I mean, I was okay. I did okay at them in school, but I wasn't in love with them. And I thought, okay, well, I like, books, I like reading. I like, I was under the impression that law was about which it is, reading a lot of things, not necessarily, literature, but there's lots of reading and writing involved. So I thought, okay, of the options, the three options, that's the one that seemed most closest to what I was interested in. And I love to write, and so really what I wanted to be was a journalist. And so the idea was, okay, you're majoring in journalism, but you guys in America, you could do pre-law, but that I actually don't even know if pre-law is an actual major, if it's just a focus, but it wasn't really a thing that you needed to do. I think in Nigeria you have to, like, there's some sort of like undergraduate version of a law degree that you get, and then you go to law school afterwards. And so having that freedom allowed me to say, okay, well, I'm going to go to law school. I will. But actually, I really wanted to be a journalist. I really wanted to be a writer of news. And
why do you think that stuck out for you? Specifically, a journalist.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't really spoken about that in a while. I just thought, I was like, why did I want to do? Well, it's funny. I would make these like little newsletters in high school in Nigeria. I started in Nigeria, and they were like, I mean, I think like 5 people saw them because it was all like kind of like fictional stories. But I think it was like it was some books I read, and I read like books about journalists or student journalists even, and something about it seemed really romantic to me, and so I think that was really largely what it was based on. And I was also interested in politics. I mean, I think growing up in Nigeria, there was a way of political discussion, a political reality. I mean, I lived in a place where coups happened, well, openly, or more openly in other places.
Really.
And when you live through a few coups, I mean, you become really aware, I think, of how quickly things can change, or how drastically they can change, or just you can see a little more directly the ramification or the connection between what happens, in the state houses and in the, president's mansion, and how it affects regular people. And so I think that was part of it too. I mean, I was interested in politics and in covering it and learning more about the events and the people who are involved in the events, and so I think that was part of my interest in journalism. And so yes, I wanted to be a journalist, and that it seemed like a good profession. Like it seemed like something that
It's not a doctor or an engineer, but it's.
Yes, it seemed good for me, not necessarily for my parents. My parents were like, journalism, there's no money in that. What's that? No. So they were definitely not into that idea. But I was like, I'm going to go to law school after. It'll be great. And then I went to college, and I kept doing theater. I kept doing student theater.
And where did you go to college?
I went to the University of Texas in Austin. And so I started, and I was writing for the Daily Texan, for the student paper, and then I kept doing theater. I was part of this student theater troupe called the Broccoli Project, and we did the first play I did was this play called Blood in Bethsaida. It was written by one of our members, a student, and it was sort of this like horror play. It was very inspired by David Lynch movies, very like a little bit of Blue Velvet, a little bit of Twin Peaks, and so there was weird demon people, and I played this axe murderer / the romantic lead in the show. It was really bizarre and wonderful, really great experience, and so I kept doing plays, and then there came a point where it was I had to choose between that and journalism. I was a regular reporter in the Daily Texan, and then I was a senior reporter, and that had a lot more responsibilities. And I couldn't do both, and I eventually, at that point, I felt more. I enjoyed doing theater a bit more, and so that became my extracurricular activity. But I still, it took me a while before I got to the point where I wanted to do it as a career, or where I committed to doing it as a career.
So how did that decision, when you were saying you had to decide between the two, that's still while you were in school, did you stop journalism, or did you just kind of phase it out?
I did. Well, yeah. So I was working in the Daily Texan, and I couldn't like go to class and work as a senior reporter and be an actor in plays in the evenings. And something had to give. And I'm trying to remember what I was doing, like what play I was doing at the time. I think it might have been, was it Godspell? It might have been, yeah. But I just couldn't do all three. And so I decided, and I think I was also, let's see, I was also getting a little disillusioned. I think it was some combination of theater, I guess, but I was also like, I want to make the news. I want to write. I remember having that literal thought. It just, to me, sounds so silly and narcissistic now. But I was like, I don't want to write about it. I want to be making it. I remember for some reason theater was making the news. So,
well, it's always in there. So
yeah. So yes, I quit the Daily Texan. And then I switched my major from, but I decided, okay, but I want to still write. I didn't want to not write. So I actually switched from being a journalism major to an English major and an English and economics major. I did this double major thing after, this is my second year of college. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do English, and that way I'll with a sort of creative writing focus, and then an economics, because English didn't sound like the best major to tell my parents I was doing, so I figured economics sounded responsible, and economics is about politics. I can sort of study economics and the political ramifications of economic policy, and then I can do theater in the evenings. It'll be great, perfect. So that was the new strategy, yeah, for some time.
So when you shifted to studying theater, and you were saying, did your mother still come to your shows?
She did. So, well, I wasn't studying theater then, but she came to my shows, and even afterwards, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They would come when they could. They didn't come to everything. I didn't invite them to everything, too. Some shows were not. I don't think they would like very much.
Some of the wilder stuff, maybe not.
Yeah, they came to some things I invited them to that they could attend. Yeah.
So when you were coming up to now you're coming up to graduation, in college, and what were you thinking?
Well, in my last 2 summers in college, I and the spring before that, I did this program called Shakespeare at Winedale, and it was through the English department at UT. And it's this program where you study there's a spring semester version and there's a summer version of it. In the spring semester, you study 1 play. In the summer, you study 3. When you study a Shakespeare play, in the summer, you get to live out in this property that the university owned in this small town in the Texas Hill Country. And it's this sort of old, this 19th century barn that was converted into a theater, and there's some dorms that are beside it, adjoin it, and you live in the dorms and you work in the theater, and you put on these Shakespeare plays in rep. The students are responsible for making all the costumes and the props. There's a costume supervisor, Maxine, and she would guide us and fix our many messes. I speak for myself, really. It was a terrible.
So for that, you got to learn all these different aspects.
You learn all the different aspects, yeah. But it wasn't through the theater department, it was through the English department. So it was very much a focus on the language. It was, and so you focus on the language, but you put on the play together, and it was really wonderful, really great, beautiful experience. And it was there that I really felt. It felt like being part of something really fun and creative and noble somehow, and it was very egalitarian and very we're very connected to the land. It was very, really beautiful, and that experience, I think, made me feel like this is how I want to live. I want to do this with my life.
So you did 2 years.
I did for 2 years, 2 summers, yeah, and a spring. The spring was sort of my gateway drug. Yeah, that was when I decided, and so I began to. And I also I do have to shout out. I don't know if she remembers this at all, but I did after my first summer I did a production of Cabaret with Berkeley Project, and I played the MC, and I remember Franchelle Dorn, who was the head of the acting program at UT at the time, came and saw the show and was like, "What are you doing after college?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she encouraged me to think about acting professionally, and then she helped me sort of work on, when I decided to go to grad school, helped me work on my audition. But it was sort of then that the seed was planted, and I thought, okay, I want to do this, but up to that point I'd never taken an acting class in my life. And so I thought, okay, I want to pursue this professionally. I think I want to do this, and I think I should study. So I'm going to try to get into grad school for acting. And I told my parents, and my parents freaked out. My father freaked out. Really, my mom was like, okay. My dad was like, what?
Was he here, or what? Were you telling him long distance?
Oh, over the phone.
Oh God.
Which is, I don't know if it was better or worse. Probably better in some sense.
Yeah.
And so they were definitely not thrilled to hear the news. But I stuck to my guns. Like, this is what I want to do. I applied. Yeah, I applied. Did the URTAs specifically, and auditioned for a few other schools, and didn't get into any of the big schools. But I met this wonderful teacher, Catherine Gately, at the URTAs, and she taught at Northern Illinois University, which I'd never heard of. But she was like, would call me, like, yeah, we had this really great connection. We would speak on the phone like every week after the audition. Like, yeah, it was really, and she's an incredible teacher. She's she just can see, like, right through you and right into you, and it's very unnerving and thrilling to be in her presence. And so I went to after college I went to Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, Illinois.
And did your parents pay for grad school?
Nope. Nope. I went into a lot of debt to go to grad school. I got, there was some sort of a tuition, some help, tuition waiver, and there were, but there was, there was still costs, and I was also sort of like young and foolish. I was like, I'll just take out loans and I don't know, spend the summer in Europe. I don't know. It was a lot of not good planning, but in retrospect, I don't regret, really any.
It's scary when you look back. It's like, it can all work out, but you look back and you go, that's such a tightrope.
Yeah, and they don't tell you. I mean, it's such a horrible scam, a horrible racket, because they don't tell you, like, how much the interest piles up. I mean, and how it's like, if you don't have, you're not paying big amounts of it every month, like, it just keeps growing. The shit keeps growing. So you're like, I owe more than I ever took out now. And it lasts.
It's like, I think did Obama say that he didn't pay off his student loans until right before he became president?
Yeah, well,
that he was still paying them off, and he's like a legislator, and he's doing all this stuff, speaking at the Democratic National Convention, still paying off student loans.
Yeah, I know, it's horrible. Most of my parents didn't pay for grad school, and and I didn't expect them to. I wanted, I think it was something I realized that I was doing something that was completely outside of their plan, and also it was I think I cherish the independence of it, of striking out in a totally different path, and I also, I think, wanted to bear the responsibility and not, so yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, because that's a big thing. Not only taking out your student loans, doing something that your parents don't necessarily approve of, and moving. from from the south to the north, from Texas to northern Illinois. And did any of your friends go to that school, or was it totally like you're solo?
It was totally new people. Yeah.
That's big on every level.
Yeah.
So what was it like going, and also because you're throwing yourself in, like you were saying, you hadn't actually taken a bunch of acting classes, and then you're throwing yourself into a grad program where there's some people, this has been their lives, so what was that like?
I mean, it was crazy. It was a lot of things. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it's funny. I mean, yeah, there are people of various levels of experience or with theater or various kinds of experience. But I think one of the things that I think we all shared in common, or the experiences we shared in common, was that we were a lot of the program, or at least the beginnings of it. I think the whole thing, really, at least the journey of it, the process of it, was to sort of strip us of sort of the preconceived ideas or notions or habits or patterns that we brought with us. So in some ways, even though there are people in my class who definitely had way more experience than I did, it was sort of a big level. Like we're all like, I don't know how to act. I don't know anything. I don't know who I am. I'm pretty, and so it was definitely a very scary. I think we sort of, the program we had was one where they accepted a new class once every 3 years. So it was like you were in the same cohort for 3 years, and it was like you were in this glass bowl for 3 years, and so we got to see parts of each other or things about each other that no one else probably will ever see, or that no one else had seen prior. We got I have some friendships from that time that I know I'll have for the rest of my life, and people who are my dear family, and I have some enemies from that time that I don't know. Hopefully it wouldn't last forever, but mine. Like it was a really intense experience. And I learned so much from it, and I hated so much about it, and I loved so much about it, and it was very hard. And I thought about quitting many, many times, and I'm really happy that I did it too. Yeah, it was very, very, very tough. I mean, we were like really, you had to really look at yourself, which can be very hard. And I'm grateful that we were in a space that encouraged that and felt safe enough, although it also wasn't safe, which was part of the point, I think. And there was a real premium put in, really, what are your impulses? What are your real impulses? What's underneath all the stuff that you put on top to get through life or to appear appropriate? And that's where everything comes from. And so I think a lot can happen, or a lot gets dredged up when you go there. And it was, I mean, for the first year, I was like, I don't know how to act. I feel completely, I still feel that way many times, but like going back to doing beauty school dropout in high school, you just become aware of just all the things you don't know and all the things you do know too. You become, and the things that you've suppressed, the knowledge you've suppressed, or the knowledge you ignore. And it was crazy time.
Well, I was talking to Ugo, and he talked about his advanced training, and one of the things he said was he felt that there was a lot of emphasis on it. Is almost like boot camp, because it was like breaking you down to build you back up. I think it's definitely similar. I would characterize it in a similar way. I think I mean that whole the equalizing part of it is we all got broken down in a sense. Terminology sounds so violent, and there's some violence to it, sure, but life is violent. Like the way you said it was more about introspection and getting to know yourself. It didn't sound as physically painful.
Yeah, well, maybe I softened the description of it, because there's definitely pain involved. I think. I mean, it's difficult, hard,
So were you still writing? in addition to acting?
I did. I was. And sort of, I mean, I kind of had like my first solo show that I ever did, I wrote in school, and it was kind of, I had this personality conflict with a professor. And so I was put on probation.
Because of the show?
No. This is what led to the show.
Okay.
I was put on probation because, and so I couldn't be in a main stage show. And so they were like, you have to come up with your own performance project. And so, and then, written little things over the years, various things, for classes or private writing. And I was spending the summer, the summer right after that, doing this theater lab, this theater program in Bulgaria, and it was in this town called Smolyan that's up in the mountains. It's a small town. It has a great theater, small town, though. And so I was, as a black man, a black person in this town, I was sort of this rarity.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
And so a lot of crazy things happened. I mean, nothing, I mean, after a while, it got really wearing, and that was probably, part of what led to this play that I wrote, the solo show. But yeah, I was like, people would take photos of me or photos with me, or to ask me to like rap for them, or it was really
be all things black for us.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, what? Okay, I can write about like sort of like trying to find a home, like being and then because Bulgaria is this place, but also like Illinois is also doesn't feel like home, and also like Nigeria doesn't feel like home. And so that produced this show that I wrote. And it was really great. I mean, it was difficult and tough, but also it was exciting, it was empowering to write that. And I actually, at some point in the summer, I got a call from school, and they're like, you know what? We'll, let you be in this show, the main stage show, if you just promise not to do this again. And I was like, oh no, actually, I don't want to be in the main stage show. I'm working on something that I really want to do. And so I ended up creating this show called Homeless that I ended up doing that semester. And I ended up doing it at the SF Fringe Festival the summer after I graduated.
Now, I want to go back to the Bulgaria trip. Was that was part of the program?
No, it wasn't. No, that was a separate thing. It was run through a bunch of different professors from different universities. Spearheaded it. Jared Stein was sort of I think the head of the program. And so how did I get it? And you could apply online. You could apply to be a part of it, but it was called the Rotimi Theater Laboratory, and so it featured participants from all over the world, primarily from Bulgaria and from the U.S., but there are people from India, from Sweden. I did that for 2 summers, and then we'd meet in the mountains, and it was sort of you would take courses, sort of master classes from these various practitioners, and you would participate in productions, and like little productions and little workshops. And yeah, I sort of heard about it through my friend Edward Coles, who was going to school at Southwestern University in Texas, where a lot of the professors and students who were a part of it came from or were based. And so yes, it was a separate thing from my graduate program.
Was it an audition-based thing, or was it a fee, or what? Because I know there's so many of those in Europe.
Yeah,
but they're just a lot of them are free.
Yeah, there was a fee. And there were also scholarships. You could get scholarships. So you had to pay or be subsidized. And you apply. There wasn't an audition. I think it was based on like your material. So you wrote something. You wrote something and you sent your credentials. And I think it wasn't. I mean, I think there was also sort of like, you have to have references, and I think somehow people who like if someone knew someone who knew you, like knew your work, I could vouch for you.
Send a letter of recommendation.
Yeah, you could get in, but I didn't have to audition for it. I don't remember auditioning for it. that's how that went.
Wow.
But yeah, it was great. I got to meet some really great people and learn some really great theater. Just it was really lots of really physical theater. So it was very physical theater based. It was.
So how was your show received at college?
It was received really well. It was really. I got to work on it with Catherine, my acting teacher, and she was a really great help. And with Alex Gelman, who's the head of our program too, and he gave me quite a lot of help with it. And it was I did it at school, and it got a really great response from my faculty and from the students, and it was really I'd never written for theater before. And so that was a really great. I'd always written like short stories or essays or articles. And so that was a great boost, I guess, to my sense of being able to write for theater or write for myself as an actor, as a performer. And it was a very empowering moment. Yeah, I'm really grateful for that.
Did you ever thank the professor that you had the disagreement with?
Good question.
Sent you off in a certain direction.
I don't know if I did. I don't know if I did. Specifically for me, I don't know if I did, but I don't think I did.
Yeah.
But maybe I should. I should find them and thank them.
Thank you, asshole.
Yeah, I mean, I was an asshole too.
But still, it's so interesting when you have those, like, there's that person, sometimes that one event, and you can track certain things down to that one time where this happened. If that hadn't happened, something else would have happened. But it sends you off in such a distinct direction,
Yeah.
like for you to have to go, well, I'll create my own play, which probably didn't occur to a lot of the other people in the department because it didn't have to.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if that hadn't happened.
And you falling in love with your show, so that you go, this actually works. This is a venue for me. This is something I can do and succeed with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you're coming up to getting out of grad school, now a lot of people, grad school means you're going to go teach somewhere. That's I've known. You remember what? Like I think Will, the sound guy for the Mime Troupe years ago, he told me how when he was in grad school, they told him that there were two tracks. You either were going to go on the performing track or the academic track, and they did not overlap. So if you took these things, you couldn't do anything else. And if you took the academic, you couldn't work on shows. It was like even in the summer, even in your free time, you couldn't work on shows. And for some people, that's what they want. They're doing it for the academic, for the credentials, so they can teach. Now, was there a split in your class, and were you sure of your direction?
Yeah, I was pretty sure of my direction, but I don't recall there being such a split. I mean, there were people in my class who were definitely much more interested in teaching, I think. I can think of some classmates of mine and who, are teachers primarily now. I remember looking at my classmates, it was like, I'm doing this primarily because I want to teach. So there are definitely people who wanted different, but I never got the sense. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. but I definitely know a lot of people who combine both. So I'm surprised to hear that Will heard that. And I knew that back then too. I mean, in fact, that's I think one of the things that makes one attractive as a teacher is if they're still involved in the applied parts of the teaching technique and teaching as if they're still engaged in
doing it.
And so I don't think I got that impression that you have to do one or the other, but I definitely knew that I wanted to be a performer more than I wanted to teach. I mean, we had to teach in grad school, so I had experience teaching, and I have continued to teach since graduating. But I always knew that performing was my main focus, or was my main goal.
So when you graduated, I'm guessing your parents were still like, yeah, but what are you really gonna do? Or...
I think so. Maybe we probably still are. No, maybe now they resigned to it. I think they were. Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, I was in school and managing to stay in school and keep doing it. And so I think over time too, they came to be like, okay, this is what he's doing, and perhaps they thought on some level that I would, you know, go to law school eventually, maybe. But I think I, you know, established myself as pretty independent over those years. And so, you know, when I said I'm moving to San Francisco, they're like, okay, cool.
Well, I know, like, some people, they're like, their parents finally accept it only because they don't keep asking them for money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but they're like, well, you're not asking me for money, so I guess you're doing okay.
Yeah. That's really a big part of it.
But so being in Northern Illinois, it's like Chicago is right there, you know, with a very vibrant theater scene, and New York isn't that far away. San Francisco's other side of the Rockies and the Sierras. So did you think at all? Did you ever go, well, once I graduate, I'm going to New York? Or how did you weigh those decisions?
Going to New York was definitely something that I thought about and that my professors encouraged me to do or to plan on doing. Or staying in Chicago. I mean, yeah, Chicago is a great theater scene, a huge theater scene. And then we had lots of connections. Our program did it with that scene. And
did you guys do like ACT does those auditions where they send the students to different cities? Did you guys?
We had a showcase. So we didn't go to different cities. We just did one in Chicago. And so we had a showcase. I moved to San Francisco. Well, I guess primarily because I wanted to live in San Francisco.
That's a reason.
And so it wasn't exactly a professional choice. But I also moved to San Francisco. I mean, yeah. But I also moved because I got a job at the Mime Troupe. That was. I mean, but I definitely remember Kathy being like, oh, San Francisco? Why? I mean, it's a great city, but you go to New York. Should be in New York. But I had come to visit San Francisco the summer of my first year in grad school for the first time on a impromptu road trip with some friends. And we came and stayed with a friend of mine who lived in Oakland, and we were here for like a few days. And I came to San Francisco and I fell in love with the city. I met people that weekend who I'm still dear friends with. To this day, I ended up overstaying. I ended up at this house in the Mission with all these amazing, colorful characters that I ended up gallivanting through town with for the next few days. And it just felt like a place where you could be queer and free and colorful and spontaneous, and it was it felt like the polar opposite of the cold Midwest. And no offense to people from the Midwest, but it was cold.
But still, I mean, because that's the thing, you were moving from Texas to Northern Illinois. That's a big climate shift.
A huge climate shift.
A lot of stuff going on.
And Chicago's a great town. It's wonderful, but I don't know. San Francisco just felt like where I wanted to be, and also felt like a place. It just felt like I felt like I wanted an antidote. I felt like I didn't want to stay in Chicago. And my plan was, okay, I'll be in San Francisco for two years, and I'll just recover from grad school and work in a coffee shop, and then I'll move to New York 2 years after. That was the plan.
Because I saw you were at the TBAs.
Yeah, so I came to the TBAs.
So I saw you at the TBAs and called you back, and then I talked to your teachers.
That's right. Yes.
Yes, I called your teachers to find out, because I was like, this guy's young. He's just out of school. Is he going to be committed? Is he going to, And they were like, no, he's really serious. If you could cast him, just cast him.
Oh, that's great.
It's like, okay. And bringing you in that year, that was Posibilidad.
It was, yeah.
Which I was actually not thinking of I was thinking of this character as white. But when I was writing it, I was thinking, well, it's going to be this white guy who pretends.
Yeah.
That he pretends like black. But you did such a good job at the audition. I was like, this works too. It's really about him being false. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, totally.
So
it was a fun character. Ernesto
and
Jenkins.
we cast you. Yeah. So I cast you right out of college.
Yeah.
And then you were around, and then you were here, and you spent time with us. Did you know about the Mime Troupe before you came out?
I'd heard about the Mime Troupe. I had never seen a Mime Troupe show. I'd never been to I'd been to the area, but I hadn't been while the troupe was playing. And so I'd never seen a Mime Troupe show. And but I'd heard about Mime Troupe, read about the Mime Troupe, and I remember getting the call back invitation. And being like, oh, okay. And then looking up the company and being like, oh, wow, okay. It's political theater. It's like, it's perfect. It's theater and it's politics. I mean, I knew it was political theater, but seeing the form, I'd never seen the videos, and I was able to see some of the performances online before my audition. I came back to the Bay Area for that callback, and very grateful to have gotten the job. I remember I was in an airport or something. I remember when I got a call from you being like, "Hey, we would like to offer you the job," and I was like, "Oh, okay." It was really
Where were you going?
I was going somewhere. I don't remember where I was. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe going home maybe it was spring. It might have been around spring break. Maybe I was like traveling for spring break. Maybe that was it. I feel like
that's what
it was. Probably around March. It would have been around March or April, I think. So it might have been like spring break. And it was. And so I was like, okay, I guess. Because that was, my dream was to move to San Francisco after school, but and so it came into the TBAs in that January, and so that was, I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I'm gonna drive out there this summer, and actually didn't even stay for graduation because rehearsal started a few days before graduation. So I was like, okay, sorry, I gotta go.
Because I've got a professional theater job.
Exactly, because I've got a job.
Yeah, really.
So
they should understand it.
Yeah, I think they did. And so I came out to San Francisco and I had a great summer with the Mime Troupe. Loved doing that play. Loved getting to tour around the Northern California with the show. I mean, what a way to arrive in the state. I got to see so much of the state. Got to meet wonderful people. Got to learn more, get more politically educated, more politically aware, and then I, it's now how many years now? Oh my god, I'm so bad at anniversaries. Actually, a few days ago, but it was 10 years. May 11th.
Really?
Oh yeah, wow. May 11th I moved here. Yeah, it's May 11th, 2010.
There's always
10 years later
for a party.
Yes, exactly. And the time has no meaning now. Sorry, the day passed and I didn't even know what day it was. But oh gosh, that's right. It was a little over 10 years ago. Aw. So I make it back to New York in 2 years. Nope, that didn't happen.
Did you do your show for the Fringe that same summer, the first time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I did the Mime Troupe, and then I was able to do the Fringe Festival right afterwards. Yeah, and
so that's a really good double introduction.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was great.
So as a young actor in the Bay Area, you got one good professional credit, and you've got your one-person show.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of years before you worked with us again.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what were you? I know. Did you keep working on your own stuff? Were you auditioning around or what?
No, I actually was right after the summer of the Mime Troupe. It might have been actually while we were still performing. How did I hear about it? Was it like on Facebook? I think it was on Facebook. Yeah, I heard that Beach Blanket Babylon was looking for like a replacement actor. And so I like, okay, like, well, guys, I go audition, and so I did, and I got hired to, yeah, they needed somebody to step in the understudy slot, one of the understudy slots, like immediately, and so I did that for almost 3 years.
Wow. Now, what
Yeah.
is that like? I've only known like one person who ever actually did the gig. What is it like? Because, to have to cover so many roles for a show that's always changing,
Yeah.
you know?
It it was great. I mean, so the way it worked. Oh yeah, it's over now. The way it worked was that there was one black actor, one black male actor, and one
Mhm.
black female actor. And so I only did the male black actors. The male black actor, yeah,
Yeah.
male black actors.
The actors. Yeah.
The male actor, the blackter, the blackter's track. So I didn't have like, so yeah, it really is divided this way, or was divided this way. The white actors, the white understudies, had to cover multiple tracks. So each actor, or there's a track, and each of the principal actors has a track that they do, and so I covered the principal blackter's track, and then the white male understudies covered like multiple actors because there were like multiple white guys and one black guy. So for me, yeah, so I always had the same track. I mean, the show changed frequently, so the characters in my track would change or things would change in my track. But I only had one track to cover. So for me, in terms of that part of the experience, it wasn't quite as crazy. Yeah.
But you couldn't be in anything else,
No, I
and
couldn't.
you're
No, I
covering.
was always on call.
So
Yeah.
how does that feel? It's like, understudying a Broadway show and never going on, kind of.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything.
Yeah. Well, so I was on call. And the 5 days a week or 5 nights a week. There were how many shows a week? 6 or 7 shows a week. And so I was always on call, so I always had to be available, but didn't necessarily go on. And that varied from period to period. I mean, there were scheduled vacation time for the principals. I knew I was going on then, and then times people got injured. I mean, I remember one particular um, moment. It was during the holiday show, the Christmas. There's a holiday sort of special or holiday version of the show, and I was like at the park or something, and I got a phone call and they're like, "Hey, you need to come in right now." And this was by this point the show had started. It was like, and so I get to the theater as quickly as I can, and they go. Albert, who's the principal, has just injured, just hurt his foot, and this was like in the middle of the show. But it's a section of the show where like he goes off, and the Christmas special starts, and when he comes back on the Christmas special, he's playing a tap dancing Christmas tree, so you don't see his face, and so like literally just change. So I go right in for him, put on the costume, and then I do the tap dance, that section of the show, and then it's curtain call time, and you take off your head, your Christmas tree head, so they can actually see your face, and they're like, "What?" And this is like, "Wait, that's not, is that the same person that's been doing the show?" So yeah, and then and then he was out for like weeks, and so I was doing the show continually for I think like 6 weeks from then or around. So there were periods of time when I would do the show, every show in a week or a few weeks, and sometimes when I would not do a show for a few weeks, sometimes up to months. I usually would perform at least a few times every 2 months. I don't think I ever went for super long amount of time without ever performing, but you always had to be on call and come watch the show at least once a week if you're not in the show, and keep up with the rehearsals and the changes. So then but I had a lot of free time, and so I spent a lot of that time going out. Yeah, I became really really involved in nightlife. Yeah, in the nightlife in San Francisco. I would I started off as a backup dancer in drag numbers, and then I would do some drag of my own, or as the drag performer. And I would go out a lot. There was a lot of partying, a lot of laying out of the park, Dolores Park. yeah, it was sort of it was time when, and I often joke with one of my dear friends who we sort of were in a similar boat. He had a sort of on-call kind of job, but it was also a time, when it was also possible for you to like work like 3 nights a week doing, door check, coat check at the club, and then the rest of the week you could do whatever you wanted, make art or, lay in the park or, go out. And so I had a bunch of friends who was sort of had a similar schedules and yeah, we like, made some projects together and did a lot of playing and we sort of look back and it's probably a factor of also of getting older, but I definitely feel like it's not really as possible to do that kind of thing in San Francisco anymore. It's just gotten, I feel like I couldn't afford to move here now the way I could 10 years ago, and it was expensive then, but now it's more. So yeah, so it's just so I had to really I got to explore the city and in all sorts of ways and
which is great. I mean,
which
to
is
have
really
that
great.
space,
Yeah, for almost 3 weeks, yeah.
To know you've got a gig and that it also leaves you the space to do all this other stuff. Your rent's covered, you've got free time to get to explore and get to know people.
Yeah.
So, I had a question. So you were saying you did some drag. Did you have a specific drag character?
I did. I still do. She appears from time to time. Her name is
What's the name?
Miss Cleo Patois. Yeah, and so she's she makes appearances still. Yeah.
Okay, so when you've been doing that, you did that, and then you when you left, because you left before they finished.
Yes.
Beach
Yeah.
Market.
Oh yeah, I meant because they just
So why did you leave?
last year. I left well. They found someone they liked better than me for the role. They were like, "We found someone, bye." I mean, it wasn't literally that said that way, but yeah, essentially they found someone else that they liked, and they said, you got a few months left, and so.
Oh, so they gave you a few months.
Yeah, a few months. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
It wasn't next week, which is nice, I guess. But yeah, so that's what happened.
So did you have to
stuck at the time.
Did you have to reintroduce yourself to the theater community, or did people still?
I think I did have to reintroduce. Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, I got and in retrospect, I mean, I got taken out of the general community because Beach Market Babylon is sort of its own like bubble in a way, and there isn't really much like you're in and then you're in and you're sort of separate from everything else. So I reintroduced in a sense, but also introduced myself to a lot of people who didn't know about me, or lots of companies, because I only did the Mime Troupe and then the Fringe show, which I got to meet some people that way, but there were lots of people who in the almost 3 years that I was at Beach Market Babylon had never met me or seen me or known of me, of my work. So I actually did the. Oh, that's right. I didn't do the TBA. I applied to the TBAs again. And then I missed some deadline, and it was I got mixed up about something, and I couldn't do it. And but then Pat Moran, former Mime Troupe collective member, musical director, musician, reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I saw you listed," and so I couldn't do the auditions, but I was still listed on the on some call sheet or something. And so he's like, "I saw your name on the TBA auditions, like what? But you weren't there, or I didn't see you there. Like, are you free? Are you available?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And so I came back with the Mime Troupe the summer after I left Beach Market Babylon.
Right. For Oil and Water.
Did Oil and Water, yeah, and so that was that my first gig? I'm not sure. Well, because I left in January of, let me see, 2013. So I think I did some other things. Pardon?
Did you do the Fringe that year?
I didn't do the Fringe, no. But I did. I think I did. I went to some other general auditions. Like I auditioned for people individually, and I think I may have done I did an understudying gig at Center Rep that spring. I remember that. And then I did Mime Troupe, and there might have been something else. But Mime Troupe was one of the I think first times I was on stage after that. So sort of coming. So it was almost like a reboot. And so and then that was was that? Oh God, sorry. So many things coming back. I've thought about this time a lot. So there are all these memories coming back. But yeah, so I worked with the Mime Troupe again, Oil and Water, and that's right. I think was I going to move to New York or something? I think I was because there was this whole thing about me maybe joining the collective, and I was like, oh, I didn't want to be around much longer, and then I didn't move to New
That's
York.
what people always say.
Yeah, I was like, I think I'm going to move.
And I was like, but I'm going to leave.
Because I think that was my idea. I was like, okay, I'm going to move to New York now. And then I was in the Mime Troupe, and then stuff kept happening, or jobs kept happening, and so that didn't happen, and then I eventually joined the collective, as you know. But yeah, so there was some reintroduction for sure. I definitely had to reintroduce myself.
And you can now, when was the next one-person show that you did?
That was in 2016, so it was a few years after that. And it was typecast.
Right.
Yeah, I did that because that process got really started. Well, multiple ways. I had been writing for Theater Bay Area, writing articles, doing journalism, sort of getting back to that love of mine. And I did this series. I was doing this series called Acting While Black, where I would interview. I interviewed a few Black actors in the Bay Area about their experiences and what it means, or what they've gone through and experience as Black actors in theater. And then the Queer Cultural Center does this program every year that's connected to the National Queer Arts Festival that happens here every June, where they sort of give you some money. You apply and you propose an event, and it can be a lot of things. It doesn't have to. In fact, it's usually not theater. It's usually like a concert or exhibition of a gallery exhibition of paintings or just various things, but they're queer focused, or creating queer community is the name of the program. And so my friend Kevin Seaman, I think posted something on Facebook or made a call. Might have I think he sent a message to a few of us, being like, "Hey, I'm part of this program, and I think you'd be, great for it. Like, I'd love you to propose something for it." And so I remember being like, "Oh, this sounds like a good opportunity to maybe do a show, like create something." And my partner Shane was like, "Oh, why don't you do something, based on those articles that you wrote, that series you wrote?" I was like, "Oh yeah." Maybe I can. And then you bound to think, oh, okay, I could, insert some of my story into it, and it could be this, And I think I was also probably feeling some frustration at the time about just sort of the roles that I was getting, or just I'd spent a few years now in the industry, and I was having my own frustrations or my own observations about the way some of the limitations or the perceptions of me and of actors like me, or who might share some of my characteristics. And so that's and then I had seen Idris Cooper, Anifa Oshi. I had seen her show Traveling While Black, and also had been talking to her actually when I first joined the Mime Troupe. She messaged me. I was like, "Who are you?" She said my name or something. On the post was like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Rotimi." And so we have been corresponding, and we've done a few readings together. And then I saw her show, and I was like, "Oh my God!" It was great. It was wonderful. The writing, her performing. And so I reached out and I was like, "Hey, I have this opportunity to do this show. Do you want to direct it?" And she was like, "Yeah." And so we worked on it together, and performed it in 2016. Yeah, at the National Queer Arts Festival was its first performance, and then I got to do it again.
And you toured it around, right?
Yeah, I got to do. Yeah, I did it all many places in the Bay Area, and then I toured it to Texas, to Vermont, to North Carolina, and Illinois. 2 years ago, yeah. So I'm gonna go to play, lots of places in the Bay Area. Yeah, it was,
But taking it to other places in the country, that show, did you feel was it kind of like they say, like you're bringing water to somebody in the desert, that people are they're so used to having this one experience and feeling like they understands, and then bam, a show like that shows up.
Oh, definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, we did it in North Carolina as part of the National Black Theatre Festival in Winston-Salem. And that was, that experience specifically or particularly felt like that. I mean, we had people walk out of the show, and then we had people also after the show be like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for bringing this. Thank you for, being like, I'm a queer woman. I can't, really speak to my family about it." Yeah, just for people who are listening or watching, I guess, the show is about the struggle, the struggles of a particular queer Black actor who's trying to, make a career for themselves in the American theater and runs into these obstacles. And then it sort of expands and becomes about a lot of people and a lot of themes around, homophobia and racism and also just the commercialization, I think, of our existence and our identities. And so there are people who are like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for bringing this. This is, incredible." People who are like, "I couldn't do this, but you're doing it. Thank you." But that, you sometimes forget living in San Francisco.
Yeah.
How much restriction in certain areas still exists in so many parts of the world or the country, and so getting to take this around reminded me of that. It reminded me of the necessity. For many people to see and to hear something that reaffirms and their existence and their experience and their right to be open about who they are to be.
When you took it to Texas, where did you play in Texas?
We played in Austin, Texas. We played as part of Outsider Fest, which is this wonderful DIY queer festival that happens in Austin, usually in February. It's got like theater and film and all sorts of performance art, visual art. It's a really great festival. And so we did it there, and that was, really, really great. Experience doing that for that audience, which is, this sort of international queer audience, and also a lot of my, friends and loved ones, from
that's what I was going to ask.
Days. Yeah, it was great. Yeah,
Texas
it
friends,
was a great. Yeah. There was lots of wonderful cross pollination of people who I love, and it was really, really great. Yeah.
Cool. So we've got a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask about when you did, was it Father Comes Home from the War?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you did that with ACT.
Mm-hmm.
And that took you to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to find out what that was like, and also did that show lead to the show you did at Playwrights Horizons?
It not directly, actually. I thought it, yeah. But I also think it, the way everything builds and everything, it does, it did. But it didn't directly. No, actually, a director of the show I did in New York, If Pretty Hurts, had seen me in something in San Francisco, and she couldn't remember what it was, and I kind of couldn't piece it together, but I also didn't want to, because I was like, I'm glad but she'd seen me in something, and she'd been like, and then when it was time to do the show, she reached out to me, or not directly, but had the theater reach out to me to audition for it, to send in a tape, because I was to audition, and I was like, I'm out of New York. And they're like, okay, send in a tape, which I did. So yeah, that's how that happened specifically. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I wondered, because when I got a chance to see the show, see you in it. You just did a great job.
Thank you.
That I was looking at it, and I was going, the skills, the storytelling skills of doing a one-person show, of doing the stuff that you do, and the stuff with the Mime Troupe, it's all, that it's a very specific set of skills that role would need.
Yeah.
A lot of actors wouldn't be able to even understand. It would be like well beyond their realm of their thinking about themselves. So they got the right person.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so. It was a wonderful experience.
Now, had you spent much time in New York before that?
No, I had not. I mean, I'd visited, but I never lived there before that. So it was my first time, yeah, doing that. I was there for a few months, almost
Yeah.
4 months, 3 months, 3.5, 4 months. So yeah, but I'd never done that before. No.
So what was that like, being that out of towner coming to do a show that's high profile with a playwright who looked like she was 12?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, man. And but having a chance to go, and like, this is, for a lot of people, this is the dream come true. To be
Hmm.
on the ground floor, a new play, a good role, Playwrights Horizons, and so kind of living the dream. What was that like?
It
Or
was
were
it
you
was
just not thinking, was it just a gig?
um it was more than just a gig, definitely. It was a great experience. I mean, I think I just as a gig, I love Tori Sampson, the playwright. She's really wonderful, it was such a fun world to play in,
Hmm.
and such a wonderful group of people who brought it to life. And so just the experience of working with those people, and playing that role, which was so much fun. For those listening, I played a cell phone. So you can imagine what that was like. Or but I played this really fun cell phone narrator character person, and and the show is sort of in this really physical, surreal, hybridization of various genres and styles and continents. Um, and so it was just really fun to do that, and so that really felt really great. And it was great to be in New York and to have a job. I mean, that's, I felt, and so I'd, get on the train and go to the theater and do my job and then go home. And it felt, wonderful to have that experience of New York. I
Did you have
think,
the same way that you had, like, when you came to San Francisco for the Mime Troupe show and kind of immersed yourself in the culture? Did you do that in New York also?
I did some of that. I mean, I did, we're doing 8 shows a week, so I didn't, have the kind of time I had, I guess, well, in my, Beach Back in Babylon days.
Yeah.
But I did some, some immersing. Let's see, yeah, I mean, I went to a lot of museums, which was really great. Um, and
Oh,
got to go out a few times, and I have some friends and loved ones in New York, so I got to spend time with them, and what else did I do? Yeah, I ate out sometimes. Yeah, but it was interesting was I think it's also sort of because where I am now, but I was also very focused on working, uh,
hmm.
um, and it was we were rehearsing, and sort of the way that show went, and I think a lot of shows go at Playwrights Horizons. We had like a month of previews.
Hmm.
So we were like rehearsing in the daytime and then performing at night. So it wasn't, so I actually didn't have a huge amount of, excuse me, of free time. And then once we opened, I was sort of like, auditioning for things in the daytime sometimes, and sleeping in, working
Yeah.
out. Yeah. So, but I did definitely get to soak up, some of New York. And yeah, it was a great experience. I think, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could think of it as being at the top of the world, but it was a job, and thankfully a pleasant one, because I definitely had ones that are not pleasant. Um,
Yeah.
and I met lots of wonderful people. I think we were all just actors working, and I didn't feel like I don't know, it didn't, yeah. But it was a wonderful experience, and I'm grateful to have had it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we still got a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask about your last show and what are you working on now?
My last show, my last solo show. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
because
your last solo show.
yeah. So I had a solo show. My latest solo show is called MANIFESTO, um, and yeah, it's sort of in some ways kind of a sequel to Typecast. So Typecast is about this queer black actor who's kind of on the outside trying to get in, and MANIFESTO is kind of about this. Is about a queer black actor who's kind of gotten in a little bit, or has gotten in. Maybe they're not at the center or the top or whatever. But suddenly they're at a time when Black and queer are in. And so they're sort of grappling with what it means to be a commodity, a valuable commodity in the marketplace of entertainment, and they run into all these contradictions. I think in some ways typecast was very sure of itself, in the sense that it was like, this is wrong. I'm a Black queer actor and I should be in more shows and I should play more parts. And MANIFESTO, I think, has a little more, questions a little more, which was what we were really trying to. Idris Cooper once again directed me in it. And we sort of, there's this James Baldwin quote that we keep returning to. The purpose of art is to lay bare the questions that have been hidden by the answers. And I think what the show is responding to, or what it's exploring, is sort of this moment that we're in right now, where there's a lot of, I think, identity and identity-based theater or based shows are used as like identity is used as a big selling point now.
Yeah.
For a lot of shows, and I think the term revolutionary or social justice or all of the above are used to sell shows, to sell theater.
Right.
My phone's. Well, I'm gonna move this around. I hope this isn't too distracting. I have to connect this because my battery might run out. But it's used to sell theater. Sorry, I'm here. Oh gosh. Okay. Keeping it real. It's used to sell shows and sell theater and sell movies, sell lots of things. And at some point, if you are an artist who claims to be making revolutionary art, then you might want to, we felt it necessary or interesting to question one's role in that commodification and question, what it's serving. And that's kind of what MANIFESTO does. And, and in our way, we sort of did it with humor and a little bit of song and dance and some drag. And so that's kind of what MANIFESTO does. Yeah, so it's like once you're in and once you're, is it enough to be represented, quote unquote? Is it enough to be,
or what are you saying?
To be the Black or queer face of the status quo. And so that's kind of what that is what MANIFESTO is about.
Are you hoping to tour it?
Yeah, we took it to Texas again, to the Outsider Fest in February of this year. And so I'm hoping to do more performances of it here in the Bay Area or elsewhere in the future when we can, be together again. So I'm hoping to do that. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, that's the time we have. I might be getting back in touch with people about, like, to talk more kind of on a cellular level about what they're doing right now,
Sure.
And what was happening. Like, I know you were in a show, I was in a show that got canceled because of the stay-at-home thing. And so to talk more about that. But the first bunch are going to be just to let people to get to know you better. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off?
No, I think I've said a lot. People are still listening.
Okay.
Thanks for
thank you so much, Rotimi.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I'll see you as soon as we're all available and free.
And yes, be well.
Okay, you too. Okay, bye-bye.